What's up, everybody? It's another Monday, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Of course, I gotta ask, how was your past week? Did you do anything exciting? I know I didn't, but you might realize something is just slightly different in this room. If you do, you can clearly just look a little bit to your left and see I bought a plant. Yes, this is fake, but hey, that is okay. All right, I'm trying. I don't have a green thumb. I'm 90% sure I can even kill a fake plant. But this is the new guest of the show now. So I do want to give it a name. I was considering something off the top of my head like Malcolm X or maybe Sojourner Truth, but instead I think I'm just gonna name it Mike Tyson because it just feels so aggressively black. Do you have anything you want to say about that, Mr. Mike Tyson?
I wish one of your guys had children if I could kick them in their fucking head or stomp on their testicles.
Wow, so inspirational. But for today's video, we gotta talk about everyone's least favorite music mogul, manager, ad-lib man, Sean John founder who may or may not have had Biggie killed, P. Diddy. And he is also, in my opinion, if you even have a surface level of hip-hop knowledge too, he's also like one of the worst people to even step up in the hip-hop scene, in my opinion. I feel like he's only been the most shadiest, most snake, most grimiest dude you could probably ever see make any moves within the history of hip-hop and R&B. From the fact that he was holding the publishing rights and masters of Bad Boys artist music for like a long ass time, which ended up with Bad Boys artists going either broke or just straight up just being held hostage. Like they had nothing else going for them. Prime example being Maze. That guy was being held hostage until he had absolutely nothing. And then, you know, you got people like Notorious B.I.G. who was held hostage until their untimely death, which I am so sure that P. Diddy was responsible for. Then there was also the fact of how he allegedly blew up Kid Cudi's car because he didn't like the fact that Kid Cudi was with Cassie and there was this little feud between P. Diddy and Kid Cudi. But in conclusion, we should all know by now that P. Diddy is like the worst person to ever be anywhere near being the face of hip-hop, and he has done absolutely nothing musically, just throw his ad-libs over people's music. And I'm glad that somebody is willing to even say anything about him nowadays, with that being Cassie. Just recently, if you've been paying attention, otherwise you've been living under a rock, Cassie and a fellow unnamed Jane Doe decided to file a lawsuit against P. Diddy, alleging that he was 1, abusive, 2, he had raped them and forced them to have intercourse with other men that he knew, and he even distributed the intercourse recordings amongst other men. There was also the producer Lil Rod Jones, who is now fighting in a lawsuit with P. Diddy on the fact of, well, sexual assault against Lil Rod. And also has some pretty interesting little tidbits tied up there in the footnotes of the lawsuit that P. Diddy also allegedly had intercourse with 2 other hip-hop and R&B figures, one of them being a rapper from Philadelphia and another one being a R&B singer who just performed at the Super Bowl. I don't know many rappers from Philly, and so does not a lot of other people, but a lot of people are speculating that it is Meek Mill. Now, Meek Mill is fairly close with P. Diddy, and of course he has responded. It's basically just him beating his chest to a bunch of pigeons online. He's just talking about how many girls he gets and how much sex he has, and he swears he's not gay. I don't really care about somebody's sexual orientation. I mean, if you're gay, you're gay. If you're straight, you're straight. And if you're bisexual, you don't exist, because bi erasure is a real thing. But what I will say is that when it comes to the hip hop industry and its association with the LGBTQ plus community, they haven't really been the best of friends, like, ever. But on that note, of course, to get into my first opinions, I do just want to say that while I am glad that Cassie and the Jane Doe was able to even bring up a lawsuit on P. Diddy, I'm not really happy with the conclusion of how it was settled out of court, especially for somebody who's kind of as notorious as P. Diddy and who's kind of had such deep connections within the game as P. Diddy. I feel like, I don't know, that feels like just such a anticlimactic outcome. It only really does immediate justice for the person who filed the lawsuit, but not for the other victims who were not involved whenever it came down to P. Diddy's shenanigans. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, it's not like Cassie and Jane Doe were the only victims, of course, and I don't say this to downplay their experiences. I don't want to downplay the experiences. They went through some very serious shit from somebody who's had such a deep hand within the game. Of course, they're going to be scared to speak out for so long because they don't know what's going to happen to them. I mean, the man blew up Kid Cudi's car. I mean, I wouldn't want to say shit either. He might blow up my house if I said anything. What I will say is that I feel like they really should have like brought down a hammer big enough to the point where he can never walk on his feet again. And you know, of course I mean that figuratively, although I would want that to be literally too, but you know, you can't have everything. I don't know. I don't want to think too short-sighted on it, and I don't want to downplay their problems either. It's just, that's kind of just how I feel on that part. And as for the other point, I just want to say, first off, let's start with Meek Mill, because of course I said a Philadelphia rapper. I feel like with the whole Meek Mill thing, as I said before, I'm not really going to be stressing about a rapper's sexual orientation. Of course, there's going to be a lot of other people in the game that will, because getting outed as anything near homosexuality, not even near it, just like you could be a solid distance from it. If they even think that you're homosexual, even though there's like no proof behind it, you'll become the butt of like every joke for like the rest of your entire career. And I feel like that's probably the worst part when it comes to like the relations between the LGBTQ plus community and the hip hop community. It's just, it's humiliation. It's punching down, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of that. But I mean, if Meek Mill is not homosexual, then he is not homosexual. I mean, it is what it is. If he is, he is. But if he's not, then he's not. I just feel like he's not really helping his case when he goes on Twitter and does a bunch of long-winded rants about how much ass he gets. I mean, the case filed for Lil Rod's lawsuit did state that there was a singer who had just performed at the Super Bowl. Now, if you are like me and only watched the halftime part of the Super Bowl because you didn't really care about the game, you would know that Usher was the one who performed at this past Super Bowl halftime show. He hasn't really said anything. I feel like that's probably the smartest move in his position, because it's like, you know, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, you know? But of course, it's all kind of comes down to what will become of P. Diddy after this. I said it before, man, the man is like deeply connected in the game. The guy probably has like dirt on everybody. So it's like, if you're really expecting any heavy hitters to really say anything about P. Diddy, they're more likely not going to. And, you know, and even if P. Diddy like just doesn't have any dirt on these people, it's still just a fact of a lot of these bigger names currently probably don't want all that media attention, and they don't really want to be involved in any of that controversy anyway. So it's like, whatever. You know, you take Cassie, and then you take Lil Rod. It's like, I feel like they're just not heavy enough hitters to really like do any damage to P. Diddy's legacy. Cause it's like the last time Cassie was popping was when she stunk it up on live TV, and then she fell off right after that. When looking at Lil Rod's like just production credits, I mean, he was a producer on P. Diddy's most recent album that dropped last year, that I didn't even know he dropped an album, and it only sold 30K first week. So it's like, I don't know, do with that information what you will. I mean, but if there's one thing I've realized in the music industry is that a lot of people are out for themselves, and how they're perceived in the spotlight, you know, matters a shit ton to them. So, you know, but of course, that's just my 2 cents on everything, man. I need to go do something and act like I'm being productive. I will catch you guys next time when, but yeah, I'll see y'all later or something. Peace.
Miren, racita, me encontré los tenis de Cell. Están bien chingones. Miren, cuando caminas se escucha bien. Mira, 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 mira.